Jordan slammed his car door, his breath visible in the cold night air. He was just steps from his front door when headlights sliced through the darkness. He froze. Before he could react, two police officers pulled up and blocked his path. The sirens cut off, and the officers stepped out. "Hey, you!" one officer shouted, his voice gruff. "What the hell do you think you're doing here?" Jordan straightened up, instinctively tensing. "I'm just coming home." The officer, Officer Richards, sneered as he looked Jordan up and down. "Home? That's funny, 'cause you sure don't look like you belong here." Jordan felt the familiar sting. It wasn't a question anymore. It was an accusation. He stayed calm, though his jaw clenched. "I live here." Richards took a step forward, scanning Jordan like he was some kind of threat. "You don't look like you live here. You sure you're not lost? Maybe looking for someone to rob?" Jordan could feel his blood start to boil, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm not lost. This is my house. I'm not here to cause any trouble." Officer Grant, who had been standing quietly behind Richards, finally spoke up. "We don't see many of your kind around here. What, you just move in and think you can walk around like you own the place?" Jordan's gut twisted. He'd heard this before. The weight of the assumption settled over him like a thick fog. He fought the urge to snap. "I told you, I live here. This is my property." Richards stepped closer, his voice dripping with condescension. "You got ID, or are you just going to stand there lying to us?" "I'm not lying," Jordan said, his patience wearing thin. He reached into his jacket pocket for his wallet, but before he could get it out, Richards scoffed. "Yeah, sure. You're probably some thug with a fake badge trying to get away with something," Richards muttered, eyes narrowed. Jordan felt the heat rising in his chest. "This is an FBI badge. I'm with the Bureau." Richards let out a short laugh. "FBI? You expect me to believe that? You look like every other black guy walking the streets, trying to play agent." Jordan's hand was still around the badge. He fought to keep his breathing even. "I'm not here to play games. I've been assigned to this neighborhood for an investigation." Richards stepped back, his face twisted in disbelief. "Investigation? Right. What? You think I'm just going to let you waltz around in my town because you got a badge?" "No," Jordan said through gritted teeth. "You're going to step back, stop assuming, and let me do my job." Grant, still standing there with a confused expression, glanced at his partner. "Richards, I think we should—" "No," Richards cut him off. "You don't get to talk back to me. You think because you wear a badge, you can act like you're better than everyone else? What, you think you can just walk in here, mess up our neighborhood, and then flash that little thing like it's supposed to mean something?" Jordan's patience snapped. "It means something when I'm trying to keep people like you from escalating things. Like you're doing right now." Richards laughed again, shaking his head. "You're not a real agent. You're just another criminal with a badge, trying to hide in plain sight. All you people think you can get away with anything just because you got some fancy job." The words stung, but Jordan stayed calm, his mind racing for the right response. "I'm not your enemy, but you're about to make me one." Richard's lip curled. "So what are you going to do? Call your buddies? You ain't even from here. You're just here to ruin everything." For a moment, Jordan didn't respond. He didn't need to. He knew exactly what Richards was trying to do. This wasn't just about a stop. It wasn't even about law enforcement. This was about power. This was about control. "I'm telling you again," Jordan said, his voice low but firm. "This is my house. I'm FBI. You're trespassing right now." Richards didn't flinch, but Jordan could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes. The arrogance, however, didn't fade. "Yeah, right," Richards said, taking another step forward. "And I'm a damn hero. You ain't fooling anyone, punk. You ain't gonna get away with anything." Jordan's grip tightened on his badge. This had to stop now. "You're wrong," Jordan said, the words sharp. "This is my neighborhood, too, and if you don't get back in your car and leave, I'm going to make sure you never forget this night." The air between them was thick, tense, but the sudden sound of a car approaching made Richards hesitate, his attention momentarily shifting. Jordan used the opportunity to take a step back. "I'm not going to repeat myself." Richards was still sneering when the third car appeared, pulling up the driveway. Jordan's heart raced. This was it. The target was here. But the tension with Richards wasn't over. It had only just begun. The car pulled up, its engine rumbling as it came to a stop just behind Jordan's. His instincts kicked in immediately. He didn't have time to focus on Richards and Grant anymore. He had a mission to complete. "Stay here," Jordan said sharply to the officers, his voice colder than before. "I'm not asking." But Richards didn't seem to care about Jordan's warning. His eyes were still locked on Jordan with disdain. "What? You think you can tell me what to do? You really think we're just going to stand here and let you play hero?" Jordan didn't answer. His focus was on the black sedan that had just parked, the target, Malcolm Hughes, stepping out, flanked by two armed men. Hughes was the suspect Jordan had been tracking for weeks. This was the break they'd been waiting for, and he couldn't afford another delay. "Get out of here," Jordan repeated, his voice quieter, more dangerous now. He turned on his heel, moving toward Hughes without giving Richards or Grant another glance. Grant hesitated. "Wait, Richards. We should." Richards, "Shut up. Let him go. He's a damn liar anyway. I'll deal with him." The words sent a cold chill down Jordan's spine, but he didn't stop. He was already too deep into this. His focus narrowed, locking on Hughes as the man began to walk toward the entrance of the building, completely unaware of the officer's presence. Jordan moved fast, keeping to the shadows, his every step calculated. He reached for his earpiece, giving the signal to his team. They were ready. But just as he approached the entrance, he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind him, the unmistakable sound of boots hitting concrete. He turned, and there they were, Richards and Grant, still trailing behind him. "Seriously?" Jordan muttered under his breath. Richards wasn't even trying to hide his disdain. "This is our town, FBI. You don't get to just waltz in and act like you're in charge. We'll handle this." Jordan's eyes narrowed, his temper flaring. "You need to step off. This is a federal investigation, and you're not in charge here. If you don't back off now, you'll be in my way." Grant, who had been quiet up until now, glanced between Richards and Jordan. There was uncertainty in his eyes. He wanted to back down, but he couldn't. Not with Richards breathing down his neck. Richards smirked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "You're not in charge of anything, black man. You think you're better than us just because you've got some fancy title? Get in line." Jordan felt the sting of those words hit him hard, the sting of being treated like he was less, the sting of someone using his race against him to strip him of his power. "That's enough," Jordan growled, his voice low and dangerous. He was done talking. Before Richards could respond, Jordan whipped out his gun, pointing it toward the ground as a warning. The officers froze, their eyes wide with shock. "Don't make me repeat myself," Jordan said, his voice steady. He didn't want to use force, but he was done being disrespected. "You're not a part of this operation. Get back to your car, or I will make you leave." Richards stared at him for a long moment, his face contorted in frustration. But then, he gritted his teeth and slowly stepped back, holding his hands up as if to surrender. "You'll regret this," Richards muttered, spitting on the ground. "You can't just walk around like this and think you'll get away with it. You're a nobody." "Get in the car," Jordan said sharply, his eyes never leaving Richards. "Now." Richards hesitated for another second before finally turning around, walking back toward the squad car. Grant followed reluctantly, but his eyes were still filled with doubt. They weren't done, not by a long shot, but for now, they were leaving. Jordan's fingers gripped the radio in his hand, waiting for confirmation from his team. The target was entering the building now, and his time was running out. The next few moments were critical. He couldn't afford to let the officers delay him again. He couldn't afford another misstep. The radio crackled to life. "We're in position," his partner's voice said. "Ready on your go." Jordan nodded, his face hardening. He knew what had to happen next. As he moved toward the entrance, his eyes flicked back to the officers one last time. They were still watching from a distance, waiting for him to slip up. It was a mistake to underestimate him. It was a mistake they were about to learn the hard way. Jordan made his way through the darkened building, his steps light but purposeful. He was close now, so close to capturing Hughes. The air inside the warehouse smelled of stale dust, old metal, and the faint scent of something more dangerous. He didn't care. His only focus was the target. Richards and Grant were behind him, but he couldn't afford to look back. They had already proven they weren't going to be any help, and if they thought they could get in his way again, they were about to find out just how wrong they were. Jordan's hand moved to his earpiece as he approached the door leading to the back office where Hughes and his associates were meeting. His team was ready. Everything had been set in motion. "Go," he whispered into the mic. Within seconds, the door was kicked open from the inside, and his team flooded in, agents in tactical gear, moving swiftly, guns drawn, eyes scanning the room for any sign of the target. Jordan moved with them, his gun at the ready, his focus sharp. Hughes was at the far side of the room, surrounded by two men. The briefcase full of cash, dirty money, sat between them, the reason for everything Jordan had been working toward. The sound of boots echoed through the space, and Hughes turned around, eyes widening in shock. "Freeze! FBI!" Jordan shouted, his voice loud enough to drown out the sound of Hughes's startled gasp. He knew it was over now. Hughes had no chance of escaping. The men around him reached for their weapons, but Jordan's team was faster. Within seconds, both were on the ground, restrained. Hughes, his hands raised in defeat, looked around, his expression a mix of disbelief and frustration. "You're done," Jordan said, walking toward him. His fingers tightened around his weapon, the adrenaline flowing through his veins. This was it. This was the moment he had been waiting for. "You think you've won?" Hughes sneered, his eyes narrowing. "You're just another pawn in a system that doesn't give a damn about people like you. You're nothing, just like the rest of them." Jordan's blood boiled, but he kept his composure. "I'm something you'll never understand. I'm here because I believe in doing what's right, no matter who stands in my way. And you're done. You're finished." He motioned to his team, signaling them to take Hughes into custody. The mission was complete. The case that had been weeks in the making was finally closed. But the feeling in Jordan's chest, that gnawing sense of unease, wouldn't go away. He'd caught the bad guy, sure. But what about the bigger problem? What about the officers who saw him as nothing more than a suspect because of his skin? What about the power dynamics in play, the ones that made his job harder than it should have been? Just as the team started to lead Hughes out of the building, Jordan heard a familiar voice. He turned, and there they were, Richards and Grant, standing at the entrance, still lingering like shadows. Richards looked over at Jordan, his eyes filled with a mix of anger and grudging respect. "You think you're better than me, don't you?" he spat. "You think you're above all of us just because you got a badge?" Jordan felt the anger bubble up again. He had been through this. He had heard it all before. But this time, something was different. This time, he didn't need to take it anymore. He stepped toward Richards, his voice calm but cold. "I'm not better than anyone, but I'm not you either. And I'm damn sure not gonna let you stop me from doing my job. You can hate me for the rest of your life, but I'm still gonna be here, doing the right thing." Richards clenched his fists, and for a moment, Jordan thought he might snap. But then, Richards looked away, his face hardening into a mask of bitterness. "You think this is over, huh?" Richards muttered, barely loud enough for Jordan to hear. "You might have caught the bad guy, but you're just a tool. You'll always be a tool." Jordan didn't flinch. "Maybe, but at least I'm a tool that gets shit done." Without another word, Richards turned and walked away, Grant trailing behind him, looking uncertain but following his partner's lead. As Jordan stood there watching them leave, a strange calm washed over him. This wasn't over. The system wasn't fixed by one arrest, by one moment. But it was a step, one step in the right direction. He turned back to his team, nodding. The mission was over. They'd done their job, but Jordan knew that for him the real work had just begun.